Right. It's lovely to be back at one of these beautiful literary festivals that we have in this small but very blessed town. And thank you always to people like Etienne and Darren and Isai for letting us be part of this world and letting that world be part of us. We only have 20 minutes, so I'm going to crack on. But just to paint a brief background picture of this book, Still Breathing in Lusterkans in Afrikaans. I just finished this afternoon with an hour to spare. I'll finally got through it because I'm a very slow reader. It happens when you live in the Karoo. And the backdrop, the very broad backdrop, is the looming pandemic. And I wanted to start, Marita, by I've also got with me the previous book, a memoir, which she wrote as if it were to her daughter Mia, her French daughter Mia. And in March 2020, you were in France, in the south of France. You were still in your home in Provence, I think.
I was actually in South Africa.
Were you here at the time?
At the work fairs.
Okay.
And that specific weekend where the book is set.
Yes.
So, and suddenly I heard restaurants in France are closing. That's the weekend of 13, 14, 15 March specifically. And the next day we heard that maybe all the borders will be closing, and I had a partner and children to get back to. Yeah. I was going to fly out anyway on the Sunday, I think, but I flew out on the Saturday or something, just in time.
So this book started happening then without you knowing it.
Exactly.
Right there, that this book started. That was the nucleus.
Exactly, because I wanted to write about a group of friends having this reunion. That's been in my head for a long time. Yeah. Friends living all over the world and having a reunion. And then, so it was going to happen anyway, but then when I had this experience of almost being caught and not knowing where you're going, if you're going to be in the country and the other people are in another country, and I realized that that would add another layer if I set the story in that weekend. So COVID is not part of the story, but it's this shadow hanging.
It's this thing looming, like waiting in the wings, although we didn't know it then. And some of the characters in the book either don't know it or try not to know it.
Some of them tried very hard, but we were all in the beginning, we didn't want to know it.
Yeah, indeed. So then you got back to your home in still Provence then, I think, and you mentioned in the memoir that you talk about how isolated you felt, the solitude that you felt, which is welcome to a writer, but this was deeper, wasn't it?
It was a very profound solitude, because I've always seen people ask me, don't you miss South Africa? I say, not really, because I come back to South Africa 2-3 times a year. So it's almost as if I couldn't really get to that deep loneliness and longing. Yes. But that happened in COVID, because suddenly I couldn't. And you can only go so far. It's wonderful that we have WhatsApp, but you get so tired of Zoom meetings. And there's a point where you have to, for me it feels I have to come back to South Africa to smell and to hear Afrikaans spoken, and to hear the sounds and the smells and to touch people, which of course you couldn't do in COVID even if you came back.
Exactly. And then also in the long letter, writing that in isolation with the pandemic happening and deepening, you wrote, "Fiction feels insufficient to me in a world that has so quickly become stranger than any fiction." And then a bit further on you say, "I'm certain that I will return to fiction, but it's as if I need to catch my breath first." But then you wrote Still Breathing, but first you wrote the memoir, and
yes,
elaborate on.
Yes, I kind of forgot about that, but that's how I felt very strongly there. The world is really, it was stranger than fiction. I always believed anyway that life is stranger than fiction. Yeah. But in COVID, it just happened every day. I just thought, this can't be happening. Everything was just so strange. So, and that for the first time, I always think I can say things in fiction that I can't say in non-fiction. So I'll never ever abandon fiction. But then at that specific point in time, I needed non-fiction. Yes. I needed, because a lot of people stopped reading. People who read a lot completely stopped reading, and some people had real writer's blocks to get through. And maybe it was a way for me to return to fiction, was to write a memoir.
Yeah. And then, and now of course time has moved on, and having survived the pandemic, thank the Lord and the universe, whoever we thank, that we're all sitting here. But now having come out the other side, still breathing, do you find that you have a kick in your step? Do you find that you have a kick in your step? Does it feel like a fresh start?
Do I have a kick in my step? Not 7 o'clock in the morning, but maybe during the, I think, yes, okay, to answer you seriously, I do think that there's a sense of gratitude that goes with the sense of growing older, and in a way that is a lot of what this book is about, is that we grow older and we grow scared, and we realize that in the end it's not so bad growing older, because if you look at the alternative, you actually thankful that you get the chance. So I think in that way I'm even more aware of mortality and how short this precious time is actually that we have here.
And that is all over every page of the book. You also have a lot of vividly, clearly drawn characters, and I find it very real to me. I mean, I feel like I sort of was there for this weekend, even though clearly I wasn't. This might apply to all of the writing, it might not apply at all. But do you base characters on people that you know, friends, family, and do they recognize themselves?
Definitely bits and pieces. I steal bits and pieces, but sometimes it's as simple as a gesture or tone of voice or a hair color or a way of speaking. So I definitely do that. Yeah. But the strange thing is, I found in previous books, when people do recognize themselves, they recognize the wrong character. And that taught me that we never see ourselves as other people see us. Because it's happened to me that somebody would come with one of my earlier books and say, I am that character. And I think, but you were elsewhere in the book.
I know that. One of the devices, I suppose, that I like is in this, the story is told largely through dialogue and thoughts. I mean, that's how I see it anyway. Which made me feel a bit like a voyeur as the reader. For example, young Ben at the fish fry dinner on the stoop, and Bobby in the toilet overhearing a secret conversation about what happened on the Saturday night when some of the people were in bed. Is that an intentional device, or is it just how it happened when you put pen to paper?
I think because this book is in a way a companion piece, or whatever you can call it. There was a previous book, Breathing Space, Wegkomkans, and you don't have to have read Wegkomkans or Breathing Space, but it won't harm you if you have read it, because maybe it would just make it a little bit, some of things more real. But that's why this one starts with almost like in these old Russian novels where in the beginning you have who's who and who's family to whom. So if you start reading it, you can always go back to that.
The first 10 pages I went back to, but then I just swam.
That's what I was hoping. To answer the last part of your question, I decided from the start I wanted to have not one single protagonist. I want to tell it from a perspective of, in Breathing Space it was 10 characters, and this time I thought, let's really go full out, challenge yourself, make it 20, because the original older generation now have children. They were little kids in the 80s and 90s, and now they're grown-ups, and I wanted to bring their voices in too. So it's literally seen, each character is seen, or the group is seen through 20 different perspectives.
And I don't know, having not read Breathing Space, I don't know if that was the case there. But now, because 25 years have passed from 1995 to 2020, there are 3 clear generations, but which I found sort of emphasized how old the older generation was.
Was that a question? Yes. The older generation are very aware of the fact that they are the older generation. Yeah. But then, like Rolf says, Rolf is the oldest. He's going to turn 71, and he says, but he doesn't feel 71. And they talk a lot about the fact that aren't you supposed to have gained wisdom along the way? Why do you still sometimes feel as stupid as when you were 16 years old? Your body sometimes feels older, but maybe in your head there's still the same questions.
And we find, I'm 68 and a half, and I find
the half is
I'm still adding halves and quarters sometimes. But you start seeing, I found that you probably feel the same, that you start becoming very aware of it when the famous people die. Like when David Bowie died, I was broken. And I know you're a Bowie fan as well. And I suppose it's not really a question, but just a topic for thought. The old people die, and the famous people, and you look at somebody who's still alive, like Tom Jones, 83, still doing the voice.
Keith Richards is going to outlive us all, the Rolling Stones. But it's not only the famous people, it's our friends. It's, in Afrikaans we say, hulle kap nou in ons bos. You become very aware of, long ago your friends, when I was younger, my friends died of car accidents and suicides and kind of unnatural causes. But now it's illnesses and heart attacks and strokes and things that, and you do become very aware of that.
And I think only a couple of years ago we were out here and you heard that a couple of, I think, writer friends or artist and writer friends had Harry Comer.
Oh yes, Harry Comer and Rek Hatter. I actually dedicated a long letter to my daughter to these two because they were friends and they both died. Well, Rek just like that, and Harry had an illness, but it also went very quickly, and I felt they still had so much to write. I wanted to still read them. And maybe in a way that's what pushed me to write the long letter to my daughter, because at that stage I also felt maybe there's one book I still have to write. If I have to keel over tomorrow, then maybe explaining my background to my French daughter, which is difficult.
Yeah. And at some point in the book Yvette says, one of these days everyone will look like their avatars on Facebook. Eternally youthful, always beautiful, not a wrinkle in sight, and that's another aspect that we have to face when we look in the mirror when we're getting older. Are we going to keep our face, or are we going to resort to the things that some people choose to do? We want our old friends to look and be old, don't we? To be who we really are.
We don't want them to look so much younger than we do. That's not fair. So, but then there you have like Adrian, who says on his 70th birthday party, when he has to, when there's a speech, and he says he doesn't have a bucket list. He has a list of things he never ever wants to do again. And he asks his friends also about their lists. And for instance, he says he is never ever going to join Facebook or Twitter or TikTok or any of those things. He's lived his life up to now without that, and he will die. And he also said he's not going to get on an exercise bicycle or get a personal trainer. His body is what it is, and he's going to rather work on his sense of humor and his imagination and his brain, what's left of it.
Well, I just want to go back a long way to when you were young in the northern suburbs of Cape Town, and your parents had a boutique called Le Chic in Sadel Center, Sadel Center.
Sadel Center, Belleville.
And then later on you had an excellent French teacher at school, and then you studied French at varsity level, and I think you did very well in it.
No, I studied French at varsity, but I bunked most of the classes, so
yeah.
When I landed as an au pair in France, I could barely speak.
Okay. Did you realize you were becoming French as young as that?
Oh no, not at all. It was a ridiculous, like a dream. I wrote a book, Childish Things, where I have a teenage protagonist who thinks that one day she will live in Paris and smoke strong French cigarettes and eat long baguettes and get drunk on French wine and have this beautiful French lover and read Afrikaans poetry to him. So it was a silly dream.
But it turned out to be far from silly, and
in a strange way, because I never got to the attic in Paris, but somewhere,
no.
Yes, I did smoke a lot of strong French cigarettes.
and now you even have a French daughter. I mean, she has a French accent.
Yes, that's very strange to me. But I think that is something that lots of South Africans can identify with, because if we don't, a lot of South Africans have grandchildren speaking different languages, and thinking and dreaming in a different language. And for me, it's my daughter. She dreams in a different language, she speaks a different language, her father is from a different culture. So that is strange to me as a writer. But
has she picked up some Afrikaans?
Oh yes, no, she speaks it with a French accent.
Yeah.
Strange.
And finally, because our time is pretty much up, but would Mia, her name is Mia, would Mia know and understand the characters in the beach house, in Still Breathing? Would she know them? Would she recognize these people?
She wouldn't recognize them because, as I say, not one single one is a specific person that she would have ever met. But we have spent some time in Britannia Bay with Mia, and it's a real setting, but the house doesn't exist, and of course the restaurant Cosmos doesn't exist.
Yeah.
So I just like the idea of the beach, and like often you have a specific time and a specific place, but then your imagination takes over. So she would recognize the place, definitely, and bits and pieces, I think, of especially the younger generation.
Well, I must say it's been an honor to chat to you in front of everybody, and it's lovely to have you back in our small town again. And I couldn't recommend this novel more highly, and ditto this wonderful memoir. So thank you so much.